الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So today's surah is Surah Qamar, and this is a beautiful surah of the Qur'an which actually talks about the miracles of the Qur'an. It's named Qamar because Qamar means the moon, and the first verse is talking about the moon. It's saying اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر, that the day of judgment has drawn close, Qiyamah, and the moon has been split. The moon has been split. So this is referring to the miracle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam splitting the moon. And this is one of the very big miracles of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this surah is going to talk about the miracles which are mentioned in the Quran. So just a brief note on miracles, that every nation had miracles. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them miracles and they reflected their culture. So whatever was prominent in their culture, and if a prophet came to them, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give them a miracle whereby they could see the powers of Allah, and they could know that the prophet was true. So the point of the miracle was that the prophet who performed them, it was a proof for the people that they could see that the miracle was being performed and this prophet was true, and it wasn't magic or it wasn't being mesmerized or anything like that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent miracles with the prophets for this reason, and the miracles that came, they reflected their culture. So whatever was prominent in their culture, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send a miracle that would demonstrate something even more miraculous. So for example, if they valued and they were a people who valued nature, then the miracle would come which would reflect nature, which would be very miraculous to them. And in this surah, some of these miracles are mentioned in Surah Qamar, and they show that the miracle came to the people, what happened to them, and the people that I mentioned, Ad and Thamud, and Musa alayhi salam, Musa, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's miracle. Now all of these miracles they came to these people. So for example, Salih alayhi salam's people, they would carve into the mountains. They carved homes and rooms and even palaces into the mountains, and you can go and see this. Some of them still exist. In fact, many of them still exist around the world, and you can see these things that they would do, that they would carve entire cities into the mountains. So that was a miraculous thing. They were very big and strong people, and they were able to do this. And when we think about today, that when we want to excavate somewhere, we need so many tools and we have modern technology, but how did these people do this? So Salih alayhi salam's people, because they would their capacity and their nature was in this, that they were very strong, that they were even able to carve through the mountains. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to them, well, you can carve objects and homes into the mountains. I'll give you something even better than that. I'll make a live thing come out of the mountain. So he made a camel come out of a live camel, a she camel that was pregnant, come out of the mountain. The mountain split and out walked a camel, and that was miraculous in nature, and they all saw this. Isa alayhi salam's time, for example, you know that they were great healers of that time. His people were healers. They had a lot of knowledge of medicine, and nature and medicine. And so Isa alayhi salam came with the miracle of doing a feat that was higher than their expertise. So they could heal, but Isa alayhi salam could cure the blind and he could cure the leper. And these were the things that his people couldn't do. But he had the miraculous nature to be able to do that. Musa alayhi salam's people, in Fir'aun's time, there was a lot of magic in Egypt, and it still exists. That this magic was very, very powerful. It was one of the most powerful magic of the time and of the world. So Musa alayhi salam's people, Fir'aun had magic at that time, and so Musa alayhi salam's greatest miracle was reflected in that he could throw his staff, and the story of he threw his staff, and it became the biggest snake, and it swallowed up all of the small snakes, which were really just the staff of the magicians. And so each prophet that came, their miracles reflected their times. And the Prophet ﷺ came, and the people of that time, they had what they call balagha, means that they were very skilled and they valued language, and they had sophisticated language, and they valued poetry, etc. In fact, they would have fairs, great fairs after the Hajj annually, just having poetry to showcase the poetry of the people of their time. And they also they would take the best poems and hang them on the Kaaba. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them something that reflected their time, and he gave them the eloquent Qur'an. So Prophet ﷺ's miracle is, in fact, the biggest miracle that the Prophet ﷺ got is actually the Qur'an. And the Qur'an is the biggest miracle because of so many reasons, that even today, after so many years, it's still alive. Qur'an, it still affects people. People read the Qur'an and it affects their hearts. They transform because of the Qur'an. So this is one of just one of the miraculous natures of the Qur'an. We know that the Qur'an has language and style that is so eloquent and timeless that even the best poets of the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they couldn't match. They couldn't match. In fact, in the Quran, there are 5 verses, the hadith, which challenge the people to bring a verse like it. Allah says, bring something like it. Just bring one verse. In the end, Allah says, just bring one verse that matches the Quran, but they couldn't do it. So the eloquence and the timeless nature of the Quran and the mesmerizing effect of the Quran is what makes it a miracle. Also, the preservation and the predictions and the presentation of the Quran are also miracles. How the Quran has been preserved over such a long period that we still find it every dot in place. And this is a miracle indeed, that even if they took away all of the Quran, the physical Qurans from the world, the Quran would still be preserved in the hearts of the people. You could take one child and ask him to read the Quran and rewrite the entire Quran like that. And like that, there are thousands of Hufaz who have preserved the Quran in their hearts. So the Quran, the preservation of it is a miracle in itself. The stories of the Quran are a miracle because if you think about the Prophet ﷺ, who was unlettered, he couldn't read or write, and there he was in the middle of the desert relating stories of faraway prophets who lived in different ages, and he could tell the genealogy of the prophets and who came after who and what happened in their era. So these are miraculous in nature. They're miraculous for us too, because when we read them today, when we read the stories of the prophets, then they trigger certain points inside us. They have psychological effects inside us. They have healing inside. So this also is the miraculous nature of the Quran. Also, there's many other reasons of why the Quran is miraculous. One is the impact of the Quran. When we listen, somebody who just listens to it, they don't even understand it, and they know it is something different. There's so many videos people have done recently where they get people who never listened to the Quran and they watch their reaction. And if you look at their reaction, you'll see that they are stunned and mesmerized, even if they don't understand it, even if they don't believe in it, but something inside them stops for a while. For a moment, something stops because they know there is nothing like it. And of course, there's the miracle of the memorization of the Quran, that it is preserved in the hearts, that even like people, the elderly can memorize it, people who can forget things. If you give somebody just a page in their own language and ask them to memorize it, never mind a book, but you give them a page and say, memorize this, you'll see people find it difficult to memorize that one page. They'll have difficulty in remembering that page, but give them the Quran, and it's a miraculous nature of the Quran that you can preserve the entire Quran in the heart, subhanAllah. So this surah, Surah Qamar, talks about the miracles, is mentioning the miracles, and then it tells us that the greatest miracle is the Quran. And do you reflect on the Quran? So there's 4 times one verse will be repeated, which is going to say that, are you reflecting on the Quran? So do you reflect on the Quran? And one of the things, tadabbur in the Quran, tadabbur means to focus and really think about a verse of the Quran. So when we are reading, especially in Ramadan, it's a race for us that we're getting from one side to the other, and that has its virtues too. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invites us to do tadabbur of the Quran, and it is when we do tadabbur, which means reflect. You read one verse, and if it makes you stop in your tracks, then what you should do is stop there and repeat that verse again and again and again, so that you can really get the benefits of that verse. That verse will become a healing for you. That verse can become a hidayah, a guidance for you. So do that kind of reading as well, where when you are reading, pause on the verses and really think about them. Really think that, what is this verse saying to me? What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying? Also, one of the other things that our great shuyukh of the past have said, that is that you should read the Quran as though it's been addressed to yourself. So don't read the Quran as in it's been addressed to a group of people, but just reflect it on yourself, that Allah is talking to me right now. So this way you will also get the benefits of the Quran. So this surah, this beautiful surah, Surah Qamar, is really Allah SWT has given it to us actually to make us reflect on the Quran and why it is a miracle for us, and also the other nations, because Allah SWT always, when He tells us something, He always gives us examples so that we can understand. And He gives us many, many different types of examples, because we're all different human beings. And at different times we're focusing on different things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us these examples so that we can really kind of if one example doesn't speak to us, and another one will, or another one will. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has by His rahmah has given us such a beautiful Quran. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This verse starts with اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر, that the day of judgment has drawn close. Sa'a means the moment, the day when the judgment is drawn close and the moon has been split. So on the day of judgment, the moon will split too. And one of the miracles the Prophet performed was that he split the moon. And the next verse says, if they see any sign, they turn away and say that it is magic that will soon vanish. And that's what the people of Makkah did when the Prophet did the Shaq al-Qamar, when he split the moon in two. In fact, it was split not just in the middle, there was a line there, but the two pieces, the two halves separated. Then so these people, the Makkans, they said that this is magic that will vanish. They deny and they follow their whims, whereas every matter is established. Indeed, such news has come to them in which there is sufficient warning to caution. So this verse is saying, وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُم مِّنْ أَنْبَاءِ, that the Prophet has brought them such news that is sufficient warning for them, right? That it's sufficient warning. حِكْمَةٌ بَالِغَةٌ فَمَا تُغْنِ النُّذُرُ. That is the most perfect wisdom. And this means the Qur'an, but warners have not benefited them. So this Prophet ﷺ has brought the people, or even the previous people, their prophets brought them such perfect wisdom, but their warners did not benefit them. So first of all, let's look at the Prophet ﷺ bringing this miracle that of splitting the moon. So Anas reports that once when the mushrikeen asked the Prophet ﷺ to show them a miracle, he split the moon, and this is mentioned in the Bukhari. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu states that the Prophet ﷺ once called the people to witness that the moon was split into two parts. And one part was visible on top of the mountain, while the other was below it. So subhanAllah, one was all the way on top of the mountain, one half of it, and the other was below. So right where they could see it. So this was how much, when we imagine how the moon was split, it wasn't just two parts and there was a hairline fracture in it. No, it was actually put all the way apart so that people they would be able to see it. Now, Tirmidhi reports that the splitting of the moon once occurred twice while the Prophet was in Mecca, and then the first two verses of Surah Qamar were revealed with reference to this. And then it said that it says that when the Quraysh of Makkah cited the splitting, they claimed that they were being mesmerized. That means that this was magic. So then they made inquiries from some travelers, and they said that they had seen the moon split in two as well. That means it didn't just take part in Makkah, but the travelers had also seen it, that whilst they were traveling for a moment, they had seen that the moon has been split. Now Allah revealed the verse, judgment has drawn close and the moon has been split. So Tirmidhi reports that when the travelers attested to the splitting, some mushrikeen said, if we were mesmerized, everyone else could not have been. So the splitting of the moon indicated to people that something that they thought to be impossible turned into reality. So in a like manner, Judgment Day will also be a reality, even though the disbelievers regard it to be impossible. So by showing these people that this was a reality today for you, that you saw the splitting of the moon, so in the same way, the Day of Judgment will also be a reality. This is why the tafsir of this verse, when it says that the Day of Judgment, there will be Surah Qamar too. And they turn away, whenever they see a sign, they turn away and say that it is magic, that it will soon vanish. And this has been the sunnah of all the prophets. You'll see that they would say, they would ask for a miracle, then they would refute it. When they saw it, they refuted it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would then punish them, the punishment would come on them. So the next verse is talking, they say, so ignore them. So when they would do this, when they made a big debate about the Surah Qamar, they said that, well, everybody had to have seen it. And, all these arguments were refuted that they said if everybody had to see it, so this happened at night, so everybody wasn't awake to see it. Right? So it's not necessary that everybody would have seen the miracle. Also, people can say that if this was such a big feat that the Prophet split the moon, then it would have been recorded in history. So other peoples would have seen it too. Other people in other nations, other countries would have seen it, and somewhere there would have been a record of it. So the answer to that is that at that time, recording was not common, and they didn't have paper to record things. This was not a common custom to record things. And also, it's not necessary that everybody would have seen it at the same time. And we can see this through the system of night and day, that whether in one place, it might be day during another place. So it's not necessary that all the people would have seen it. So this whole debate about the Surah Qamar, all the all the questions have been answered very, very logically. So the Prophet ﷺ is being told to ignore them. You know, when they have these debates and they don't believe, then they ignore them. The day when the caller shall call to a thing that is unpleasant, their gazes will be cast and they shall emerge from their graves as if they are scattered locusts, running towards the caller. The disbelievers will say, this is an extremely difficult day. So this is verse 8. So on the day of judgment, people will emerge from their graves like scattered locusts. Now, so the first verse addresses the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by telling them to ignore them. You know, they are going to reject these things and they will suffer the consequences of the day. And then Allah continues that the day will come when the caller will call, that means the angel will blow the trumpet for the advent of the day of judgment. The judgment day will take place. And the second trumpet, then the people will come to life and emerge from their graves. And their gaze will be cast down. And you can imagine all over the world, wherever the graves are, and wherever people are buried, they will emerge from their graves, and their gazes will be cast down, and they will run towards the callers. Everybody will run towards the caller, towards this where the trumpet has been blown, and they will look like scattered, like crawling over the earth, because billions and billions of people in droves, in groups and individually, and huge plains will be filled with people running towards the plane of resurrection. And this will be one large open vast space, and it will appear as if the large numbers of people are swarms of locusts converging on a field from all directions. And as this takes place, the disbelievers will say, this is an extremely difficult day. What will they say? They will know it. They will feel the weight of it. They will have risen from their graves, and they will say that this is an extremely difficult day. And then verse 9 says, now we are going into history, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a lot of history in the Qur'an, examples from the history, so that we can understand. One of the factors of wisdom, hikmah, is that the people who have hikmah, they reflect on the past, because the past teaches them what is happening in the present and what will happen in the future, because this is the sunnah of Allah, that these cycles are repeated. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always gives us examples from history. So it says in verse 9, it says, كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح فكذبوا عبدنا وقالوا مجنون وازدجر. So the nation of Nuh denied before them. They falsified our slaves, saying that he is a madman, and he was rebuked. Right? So they falsified Nuh alayhi salam. You know the story of Nuh alayhi salam, that he preached to his people for 950 years, and still he had a handful of followers. He didn't have that many followers. Like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will have millions, even maybe billions of followers on the day of judgment. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in hadith has said that this Qur'an is a miracle. This is the mafhum of the hadith, not the actual words, but his understanding of the hadith. He said that the Qur'an is a miracle, and he tied that in the hadith. He said that because there will be a multitude of followers on the day of judgment. And what this means, multitude, means there will be so many followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this will be, he tied it to the Qur'an, because we have the miracle of the Qur'an. Subhanallah, that we had the Qur'an, and we will, until the day of judgment, people will keep on following the Qur'an, and they will keep on coming towards Islam because of the Qur'an, and the miraculous nature of the Qur'an. And this is why on the day of judgment, some prophets will have only a handful of followers, and people like Prophet Muhammad will have vast amounts, vast numbers of followers, inshallah. And so The next verse is about Nuh alayhi salam, that his people, they denied him and they falsified our slave, saying that he is a madman, and he was rebuked. So he supplicated to his Lord, saying, فَدَعَا رَبَّهُ, he prayed to his Lord, أَنِّي مَغْلُوبٌ فَانْتَصِرْ, that I am maghlub, I am overcome. Nuh alayhi salam is saying to Allah that I am overpowered, so assist me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know now that he says to Nuh alayhi salam that make your ark, make a boat. And then Nuh alayhi salam is making the boat, and his people are mocking him, and they are making fun of him. Nuh alayhi salam carries out the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the next verse it says, so he supplicated to his Lord, saying, indeed I am overpowered, so assist me. Verse 11, so he opened up the doors of the sky to terrestrial rains, and we cleaved springs in the earth, so that the waters met for a matter preordained. So that's what it says, that we opened up the sky for torrential rains. So a huge amount of rain came from the skies, and Allah opened up the earth, and there was a great flooding. And these two waters met. Right, the water from the sky and water from the earth, the waters met, and Nuh alayhi salam's ark, his boat, it sailed on this. It sailed on this water. So verse 13 says, we carried him, Nuh alayhi salam, on an ark of planks and nails. So what was this ark made out of? Planks means wooden planks, and which were put together with nails. And so that's what I say. We carried him. This was miraculous. Despite so much water which flooded the whole earth and all the people and all the animals, Nuh alayhi salam was carried on this ark with the family that believed in him, the few people that believed in him, and Allah had ordered him to bring onto this ark a pair of all animals, male and female pair of all animals, and they were all floating on this water. So verse 14 says, traveling under our vigilance. That means Allah was watching them whilst they were traveling. This was the reward for the one who was not appreciated. So Nuh alayhi salam was not appreciated by his people, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this reward. Verily, we left the incident as a lesson. So is there anyone who will take heed? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we left this incident as Nuh alayhi salam's story as a lesson. So is there anyone who will take heed? Now this is the word وَلَقَدْ تَرَكْنَاهَا آيَةً فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. So this is the verse which is going to be the next verse, فَكَيْفَ كَانَ عَذَابِي وَنُذُرِ. And the next verse, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. This is the verse that is going to be repeated in this surah 4 times. And it says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ. Undoubtedly, we have made the Qur'an simple to take lessons from. I mean, we made this Qur'an very simple for you to learn the lessons from it. And so, is there anyone who will take lessons? Is there anybody who will, as the previous verse says, who will do tadabbur? They will take heed, they will ponder on these. And then the last verse says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ. We made this Qur'an very simple to take lessons from. So, is there anyone who will take the lessons? So this is the first example that is cited to the Meccans. So first of all, this verse opens with the verses of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, performing the miracle of splitting the moon. Then it gives us the example of Nuh Alayhi Salam and his people, and you know the story that he preached for 950 years, and then he prayed to Allah that أَنِّي مَغْلُوبٌ فَانْتَصِرْ. This is a very good dua for us to memorize as well, that I am overpowered. So when if we get into any situation where we feel overpowered, and we can make this dua of Nuh alayhi salam. This is one of the other miracles of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us gifts from these prophets too, that of their du'as, that their du'as are very, very effective in certain circumstances. So we should memorize the du'as of these of the prophets as well. So this is the story of Nuh alayhi salam. And it's talking about these surahs. This is what we started with. It's talking about the Quran, that Allah has made the Quran very simple. And this verse is going to be mentioned 4 times, as we mentioned. In the Arabic word, the phrase "dhikri," to take lesson from, has been interpreted by Sayyidina Sa'id ibn Musayyib for memorization and for recitation. That means Allah has made this Quran very simple for memorization and for recitation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in the Quran that if you want to memorize the Quran from this verse, it's telling us that we made it very simple, that if you want to memorize it, don't be afraid. Jump in and start memorizing. This is why we see people who are elderly, where memory starts to fade, where they can't remember simple daily things sometimes. Sometimes people, even with athar, not athar meaning symptoms of Alzheimer's, which can set in old age, they forget other things, but the Quran, they won't forget it. They will keep the whole of the Quran. And this is one of the miracles. So we're really being urged to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that we've made the Quran very easy for memorization and for recitation. And we could make an intention, everybody, you and I, we can all make an intention that we're going to memorize the Quran from today onwards, even if there are few verses, and we make a systematic effort, then in a few years we will have completed it, inshallah. So let's make an intention, no matter who you are, what your workload is, or where you are in your life, how young or old you are, then we can all make this intention to memorize the Quran, so we can go back to Allah with the miracle of the Quran in our hearts. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. May Allah make it so for all of us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He has made the Quran easy for memorization and for recitation and to understanding. So that we are sitting here talking about the Quran. When the Quran was given to the mountain, it refused to accept it. This verse is in the Quran that the mountain refused because it was such a heavy load, it wouldn't take it. But the insan took the Quran. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, by His rahmah, His mercy, Allah made it easy for us as well. So the miraculous nature of the Quran is there. We talked about it at the beginning. We really need to ponder on the nature of the Quran and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with such a big blessing, that the Quran is the biggest blessing in our lives. If we don't have anything else in this life, if everything else leaves us of this life and we become destitute and we become we don't have anything else, but we have the Quran, then we will have everything. So it is up to us to hold fast to the Quran and also give the Quran as a heritage to our children. We want to give our children so many things, the knowledge and the education and the careers and the money and the prestige and everything else. But if we didn't give them the Quran, we have done them the biggest disservice. Because yes, they might live their life in this world very successfully, and maybe whatever, they might have many accolades and whatever in this life, but if they don't have anything for the next life, then they have lost out big time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really urging us in this surah to take hold of the Quran. The next verses are going to talk about the Qawm Ad, and this is one of it's repeated many times in the Quran. Their example too. So it says, كذبت عاد فكيف كان عذابي ونذر. So the Ad denied, so how was my punishment and warnings? Verily we sent them a cyclonic wind during days of perpetual misfortune. And it said that the wind came for 7 consecutive nights and 8 consecutive days. So imagine 7 days, 7 nights, 7 days, 8 nights. 7 nights and 8 days, there is a consecutive wind that is blowing. And the people of Ad were the people of Hud alayhi salam. And it says that this wind came on them, and it was a cyclonic wind, and it brought them perpetual misfortune. It ousted people as if they were uprooted palm trunks. Remember that these were very strong people. But what did it do? The wind blew and the Ad were cast down like felled trees, felled palm trees. And they likened to palm trees because they were extremely solid and powerful people. They were built very, very solid. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this wind came, this was an adab, punishment on them, and then they were like scattered palms. In fact, Allah says that they were arrogant on earth without reason and said, who could be more powerful than us? They used to say, is to boast that who could be more powerful than us. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala smashed their pride when the wind disproved their invincibility. So it was just the wind, Allah said, for 7 days and 7 days and 8 nights, all the way around. And they became uprooted like this. And this is the punishment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them. And verse 21 says, so how was my punishment and warnings? Undoubtedly, we have made the Qur'an simple to take lessons from it. Again, that verse is being repeated. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. That we have made the Qur'an simple to take lessons from. So is there anyone who will take lessons? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concludes this incident by saying, so how severe was my punishment and warnings? Undoubtedly, we have made the Quran simple to take lessons from. So is there any who will take lessons? And this is the story of the people of Ad. And then directly following after that is the people of Thamud. It says, Thamud bil-nudhr. And the Thamud denied the warners. They said, if we were to follow a lonesome human from among ourselves, who would surely be astray and we would surely be astray and insane. Has a revelation come only to him from among all of us? Nay, he is but an arrogant liar. Tomorrow they shall come to know who is an arrogant liar. So when they added the people of Thamud, they lived after the people of Ad, and they used to carve their homes out of the mountains. These are the people who carved their homes. And the Prophet Salih came to them, as we mentioned earlier, and he preached the oneness of Allah, and he told them to carry out the good deeds. But the pride got the better of them, and they told Salih salam that you are just an ordinary human being, just like the rest of us. And why would Allah choose you? Why would you be the lone person that Allah would choose? And they accused the Prophet Salih of pretending to be a prophet. So Allah took them up on Allah took them up on that. And Allah says, tomorrow they shall come to know who is the arrogant liar. So in this verse, Allah is telling them, tomorrow you'll know who is the arrogant liar. And as we mentioned earlier, that their miracle was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they asked him, the people of Salih, they asked him to extract a pregnant camel from the mountain. Because this, in their minds, it was an impossibility. How can a live object, a live animal that come out of a mountain? So they asked him for that. And so Allah caused a large camel to emerge from the mountain, and this was a miracle. And because of this, because the camel was so large, it ate and drank much more than normal camels. So Salih told them that there will be turns at the watering hole for the camel. Your camels will have one day, and the Allah's camel will have another day. And so they started, for a while this happened, and then they asked one of their people, they got tired, and they asked one of their people to kill this camel. And so it said that man hamstrung the camel. This is a way of bringing the camel down. They would knock the legs, and then the camel would sit down, and then they would kill the camel like that. So he hamstrung the camel, and because they didn't like, the camel didn't like that the camel was getting a share of with their animals. And so they killed the camel. And when Salih discovered this, he said, enjoy in your homes for 3 days. This is a promise that will be fulfilled. So in Surah Hud, this is mentioned that he's told them that go and enjoy in your homes for 3 days, and you in 3 days you will see the consequences of what you have done. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent against them a single shout, and they became like the rubble of a fence. Like, for example, if a fence falls down and the wood becomes disintegrates, then they became rubble like this. So their punishment was that Allah sent a single shout, and in another surah it says that in Surah Al-Araf it says that an earthquake seized them. So it's likely that both of these punishments came, and there was a single shout that they were not dead by that, and also there was earthquake. And if anybody has ever been in an earthquake, it's not a simple matter of the earthquake, but there are many things preceding it, like the noise and the shaking, etc., etc. So they were in a predicament that suddenly they had 3 days after they killed the camel, and then after this punishment came on them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the verse says that, verse 25, it says, has a revelation come only to him from among all of us? No, nay, but he is an arrogant liar. That's what they said about Salih. Tomorrow we shall come to know who is an arrogant liar. Allah is saying, we shall certainly send the camel as a test to them, so watch them and be patient. Inform them that the water shall be shared between them, and each should present himself on his turn. That means Salih's camel would have 1 day the water, and then their camels would do that. So they called for their companion, who attacked and cut. So he cut the camel, he killed the camel. How was my punishment and warnings? Verily we sent against them a single shout, and they became like the rubble of a fence builder. Undoubtedly we have made the Qur'an simple to take lesson from, so that so is there anyone who will take the lessons? Again, this surah, this verse is being repeated, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ, that we have made the Qur'an simple to take lesson from. So is there any who will take lessons? So that was the mention that was of Ad and Samud. These are two great peoples of the earth that Allah destroyed because of their disobedience. And the third, as we mentioned here, is Qawm Lut. And we know the story of Qawm Lut too. So it says, the people of Lut denied the warners, and verily we sent against them a cyclone, wind, that showered stones on them, except for the family of Lut, whom we rescued during the close of the night. This was a special favor from us. In this manner do we reward the grateful. He certainly warned them that he would seize them, but they started disputing about the warnings. They attempted to seduce his guests, so he obliterated their eyes. Taste my punishment and the results of my warnings. And verse 38 says, without a doubt, during the early hours of the morning, a chastisement with long-lasting effects afflicted them. So taste my punishment and the results of my warnings. Undoubtedly, we have made the Quran simple to take lessons from. So is there any who will take lessons? Now this is about Qawm Lut, and we know that Lut alayhi salam migrated with Ibrahim alayhi salam from their homeland, and they took up residence in Sham, which is the area known as Syria and Palestine. All of that is known as Sham, and they came from Iraq. And Lut and Ibrahim were related. It said that they were cousins, or they were uncle and nephew, but they were related and they migrated together. And so Lut was sent to a group of several cities, and the largest of which was Sodom. And this is in Jordan right now. And so Lut was sent to these people, and the cities, they were evil people who carried out numerous acts of vice, including homosexuality. And Lut preached to them to accept the oneness of Allah and to desist from their evil deeds. But despite this, they continued with their ways, and eventually Allah punished them. Now, it says that before the punishment arrived, Allah sent a few angels to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and you know this incident is mentioned in the Quran too, that they came to him, and Ibrahim alayhi salam was a great host. This is one of his characteristics, that when he was such a great host that he said about him that he would never eat alone. If he was about to eat, and he would go out and find somebody to come and eat with him. He never had his meal alone. And so whenever guests came to him, he was very, very hospitable. So when these strangers came, and these were angels disguised as very handsome men. They came and they presented themselves to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he had an animal slaughtered for them, and it was roasted and brought to them. And when the food was put in front of them, they wouldn't stretch their arms up to eat. They wouldn't touch the food. So Ibrahim alayhi salam became afraid that who are these people that they're not accepting hospitality and they're not eating the food. And then the angels told Ibrahim alayhi salam that we are indeed angels and we have come to give you glad tidings. Number one, glad tidings that you will have a son. Sarah alayhi salam. And Sarah alayhi salam heard this and she screamed because she said that I am an old woman and how can I have a child? But this was, they brought the glad tidings of a child to Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim alayhi salam was also advanced in age at this time. Number one, that's what the glad tidings they brought, but they also brought bad news that they were going to destroy the people of Lut. And so Ibrahim alayhi salam told them, we are to destroy the inhabitants of this town, the town of Lut alayhi salam. Its inhabitants are certainly oppressors. So Ibrahim alayhi salam said, how can you destroy the entire town when Lut is among them? So they replied, we know best who is present there. We shall definitely rescue him and his family, except for his wife. She will be among those left behind to perish in the punishment. And this is mentioned in Surah Qamar. And so after giving Ibrahim Islam the good news that he was to be a father to a son, the angels left and to meet Lut alayhi salam. And because they met Lut alayhi salam in the form of handsome men, he was anxious that his people might try to seduce them, sodomize them. So as expected, when the angels came, they hurried to grab them. And Allah refers to this when he says he attempted to seduce his guests. And Lut alayhi salam saw them approach, and he tried to reason with them. He said, oh my people, these daughters of mine, the women of my ummah are pure for you. So do fear Allah, do not disgrace me in front of my guests. But they didn't listen. And Lut alayhi salam was told to take his family away during the night. And so they traveled during the night, and because they were going to destroy the people. And his wife, he said she set out with them, but then she turned around and because she didn't believe, and so she was also destroyed, killed in the punishment. And the next morning, stones rained down on the people, and each stone was marked with a person that was destined to strike, and this is mentioned in Surah Hud. And some commentators mentioned that the people in the cities were killed when it was overturned. So first the stones came down and they struck the people, and they were killed, and then the entire city was overturned, which is now the Dead Sea. So this it's said that nobody survived this. None of the people survived this punishment. And he said that there was, Sayyidina Mujahid mentions that there was a person from that vicinity who had gone to Makkah at the time for business. And when he left the Haram after 40 days, a stone struck him dead as well. So nobody survived this except for the people who believed. So this was the punishment that came down. It says in this Surah Qamar, it says that they sent down a cyclonic wind that showered stones, and without a doubt, during the early hours of the morning, a chastisement with long-lasting effect afflicted them. And so taste my punishment, Allah says, and result of my warnings. And then the verse is repeated again. Undoubtedly, we have made the Quran simple to take lesson from. So is there anyone who will take lessons? And now we have had 3 examples. The 4th example we're going to be given is about Fir'aun.
And this has been mentioned, Fir'aun has been mentioned, Musa alayhi salam has been mentioned over 70 times in the Quran. He's the most often mentioned prophet. And so it says, verse 41 says, warnings definitely came to the prophet of Fir'aun. They denied every one of our signs, so we seized them with the grasp of one most mighty and powerful. As your disbelievers better, are your disbelievers better than those people, or do you have immunity from punishment in the scriptures? Now, this is a question that the people of Makkah are being asked. The Prophet is being asked that your disbelievers of Makkah, were they more powerful than these people, the Ad, Thamud, who carved things out of mountains and they were so powerful? So are the Makkans more powerful than that? And the answer obviously is no, they weren't more powerful than that. And then verse 44 says, or do they say we are a victorious band? The band shall be and they will turn their backs and flee. Nay, judgment day is their appointment, and day of judgment shall be more severe and more bitter. Indeed, the criminals are in deviation and blazing fires. The day when they shall be dragged into the fire on their faces, it will be said to them, taste the touch of the blaze. We have certainly created everything by measure, and our command is but once like the blinking of an eye. So these last verses of Surah Qamar is saying, Inna kullu shay'in khalaqnahu biqadar. So we have made everything, Allah is saying, we have certainly created everything by measure. That means everything is measured and is written down. And our command is but once like the blinking of an eye. That means Allah has already created everything, everything has been measured and weighed and written down, and it is only for the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verily we have destroyed nations like yourselves, O Makkans, in brackets. So is there anyone who will take heed? Now this is for us too, not just for the Makkans. We're reading the Quran right now. So that's what I'm saying. Verily we have destroyed nations like yourselves, who are far more powerful than you. If you look at the dynasties of the Fir'auns and the Ad and the Thamud and the great dynasties that existed before, they are far more sophisticated than anything that we see on this earth today. We think with our technology and with our advancement and our science, we are very powerful. That is not true. We can look back at history and you will see that many, many great dynasties have lived before us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, verily you have destroyed nations like yourselves. So is there any who will take heed? And whatever they did was recorded in the books. And it says, وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَعَلُوهُ فِي الدُّبُرِ وَكُلَّ صَغِيرٍ وَكَبِيرٍ مُسْتَطِرٍ. Every major and minor and major deed is recorded. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, everything they did was recorded in the books. And every minor, وَكُلُّ صَغِيرٍ وَكَبِيرٍ, صغير, small and big deed is recorded. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, mustatir is being recorded. Inna al-muttaqina fi jannatin wa nahar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us, after all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us, verily, the abstinent ones, the muttaqin, shall be in gardens and rivers. Right? This life is difficult. This test is difficult, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us at the end of Surah Qamar that in al-muttaqina, that the abstinent ones, the muttaqin, they will be in gardens, fi jannat and with rivers of milk which doesn't spoil, and honey and wine which is easy to take, and water, crystal clear waters. These are the rivers and the jannat will be in. Fi maq'adi sidqin, in a grand place, in the Malikin Muqtadir, in a grand place by the powerful sovereign, with Allah. Basically, with Allah, we will be in a grand place. Fi maq'adi sidqin, in the truthful place, in a grand place, and we will live there forever and ever, inshallah. And that is what ends this surah. This is 55 verses in Surah Qamar, very beautiful verses. And in here, as a summary, we will say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inviting us through all these examples. He gave us the example of the Prophet ﷺ first, of Prophet splitting the moon, and then he gave us the example of the Ad and Thamud and Fir'aun and Qawm Lut, all of these people, they came and they perished. They came, they saw, they conquered, and they perished. Right? And this is what we are on earth for. We came, we saw, we will conquer, and then eventually we'll go back to Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us at right at the beginning of the surah, it said about the judgment day, on the judgment day, the Surah Qamar, that will take place. And then at the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in these verses, as a conclusion, he's saying that everything that we do is being recorded and it is in a book. And Allah has already predetermined and predestined what is going to happen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, verse 49, it says, Wama 50, Wama amruna illa wahidatun kalamhi bil basar. That we, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our command is but once, like the blinking of an eye. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only has to blink the eye there, and this is just an example. We're not talking about literal eyes, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command is like the blink of an eye. That's an idiom for us, that it happens so fast. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just has to pray and it will happen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us all of these examples in Surah Qamar so that we can reflect on them, and we know that the Prophet came with the truth, and he came with many miracles, and the biggest miracle he gave to us was the Qur'an. The Qur'an is a living Qur'an. It is a living book, because still today, look at how we are interacting with the Qur'an. And other people who have received their books, they do not interact with them in the same manner that we interact with our Qur'an. Not only do we use it as a guidebook, and we glorify the praises of Allah through it, and we interpret the messages of Allah through it, and we memorize it, but every single day we interact with this Qur'an, and we use it so frequently, and we even in our salah, we are constantly using the Qur'an. So this is a living miracle Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us, and He is expounding the virtues of this Qur'an. He says, He's telling us that it's very easy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us the confidence to really take this Qur'an, to embrace it, and to interact with it on every single level. And this is all mentioned in this beautiful 55 verses of Surah Qamar, which is the 54th surah of the Qur'an. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala avail us of the beauty of this Qur'an, to interact with it at all the levels, and make us followers, true followers, because that's the ultimate aim, that we follow the messages of the Qur'an. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.